Oberlin Municipal Light and Power System, Steve Dupee. And we're delighted to have you here this
Nice
evening,
to be here,
sir.
Dick.
Make a short biographical statement. If I get some of this wrong, correct me.
Sure.
Native of Wellington, he has a bachelor's degree in industrial management from the University of Akron, and he has also studied at LCC. Is that correct?
That's true.
He once worked, this rather fascinated me, he once worked for a car rental company in Columbus and as an office production manager for a Cleveland advertising firm in Cleveland, right? In 1992, he saw an ad for the job here as assistant to the director of the Oberlin Municipal Light and Power System. He applied, he got it, and here he still is. 1999, he was appointed manager in key accounts and utility services, and in 2000, interim director. And he was appointed to the directorship in March of this year. So congratulations on that promotion.
Thank you.
I know people are very pleased about it.
Thank you.
The electric business, let me say, today is sort of a dichotomy in a way. It is about the business of power production and distribution, but it also has a sales and distribution aspect to it. There's sort of two parts now. And salesmanship is important. And so with all that background, here we'll go. First, let me ask you this. Did the fact that your dad was the utility director in Wellington for years have any influence on you?
Sure, it certainly had influence. I have seen what a wonderful career that he has made out of becoming or being the utilities director in Wellington. And it was something that I certainly sought after and thought that would be something good for me. I think fate kind of brought me here. As you said, I was in the car rental business in Columbus in the late 80s, and shortly there, about 3 years, and I had just decided that I'd had enough, and it seemed like I had a calling to do something else, and I knew I wanted to move back closer to the Cleveland area. I grew up in Wellington, and so I wanted to be closer to home, and so I got a job up in the Cleveland area, and I worked there for about a year and was laid off. And a week after I was laid off, that ad appeared in the paper for assistant to the director. And as soon as I read it, I knew that this was something that I should apply for. And as you said, applied for it, got the job, and here I am. But no, I've grown up in a public power family all my life, and I see what kind of good public power can do for a community. And it was certainly something that I was interested in and wanted to be a part of.
And I can understand your dad not wanting to be left behind in this promotion business, so he's now village administrator in Wellington, isn't he?
That is correct,
so
yes.
Congratulating each other. Is he liking that?
Oh, he loves it.
But he's still doing some of the utility?
Yes.
Well, see, Oberlin went into the electric power business, I believe, in 1934, after somewhat of a convoluted history of trying to get to that point. Could you tell us just a little bit about how that came about?
Sure. What I have read is that in 1919, the Oberlin citizens decided to, or approved a bond issue to build a municipal power plant. And shortly thereafter, some litigation arose that stopped that from happening and wiped out the ordinances that they had approved. I believe the Ohio Electric Power Company was the investor-owned utility that was serving Oberlin at that time, and they were putting several roadblocks in the way. The citizens again voted a second bond issue that same year to build a municipal power plant, and I believe at that time the bond issue was like $58,000. But a deal was struck, I believe, with Ohio Electric Power Company, and that staved off municipal ownership for a period of time. And then in 1932, under the direction of Mayor Morris and City Manager Sears, they pushed forward with municipal ownership again. They weren't happy, I believe, with the rates that were being charged by the Ohio Electric Power Company.
I think the service, too, was lacking.
What service was lacking? Okay. And so they pushed forward again, and through several litigation battles in the state court and one in the Supreme Court, Ultimately, Oberlin prevailed and was able to start their own municipal power plant and have their own utility in July of 1934. So
There's one thing I read just 2 days ago, which I had forgotten about, and that is that in the mid-50s, there was a great push to sell out to Ohio Edison.
okay.
And I think that was prevented by one council vote.
Well, I'd like
There
to
were-
shake that council person's
Well,
hand
that was
because-
Charles Mosier.
Charles Mosier,
Charles
okay.
Mosier, and who agonized. He could see both. There was a group, a conservative group, who apparently thought this was socialistic and we could do better. And Ohio Edison was encouraging that little idea.
Sure.
And there were others that said, no, we better. And I think they split down the middle. And I will say an interesting thing. There was a professor of economics who was very pro-light plant. And he went on leave of absence, and they suspended all discussion of this until he returned, which I thought was very, very interesting. And, but we're grateful, certainly, that
Absolutely.
that plant is
That was a
there.
good decision.
Yes, yes. How many employees do you have today?
We have 20 employees. 16 of them are full-time. We have 5 employees in the generation division, 6 employees in the distribution division. Normally, some of those people are off due to injury. We have 4 people in our technical services division, 3 in our administrative division, and then we have 3 part-time meter readers, and then we have a cleaning person that keeps our place in tip-top shape.
What's your total budget for the operation?
Our total budget is a little over $8 million.
A little bit more than half the total city budget, isn't it? Or used to be, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure exactly
Yeah,
what
but
the
it's a
total
big
city,
chunk
but
of
it's
it.
a,
Yes,
it's a sizable chunk.
How many customers do we serve? Let's break that down.
Sure.
Residential. How many
Okay.
residential?
We serve 2,900 residential customers. We serve 300 commercial customers, so 3,200 total. What's funny is that we only sell 25% of our kilowatt hours to those 2,900 residential customers. We sell 75% to the commercial, and 70% of that 75% only goes to the top 19 customers in Oberlin. So we do have quite a lot of eggs in one basket.
We don't want to lose too many industries.
No, actually, three commercial customers comprise 40% of our sales. Oberlin College, of course, is number 1, in which we sell 20% of our electric service to them, and then 10% to Quebecor World, and 10% to the FAA. So.
Now let's see. Oberlin College has some generating capacity, does it not?
They do at their heat plant, and they generate during the winter time to heat their facilities.
We're certainly fortunate to be able to generate power, and I believe that we have. Well, tell us how many generators we have now.
We have 8 generators. 6 of those generators are dual fuel capable,
Gas,
and what
oil.
that means, they can run on diesel fuel or natural gas.
Yes, okay.
We have 1 engine that is natural gas only, and that engine was installed in 1996. Previous to that, we hadn't installed engines for 35 years. The newest engine was from 1966. And then we have an 8th engine that is diesel fuel only, and that is the oldest engine in the power plant. I believe the year of that engine is 1948. So we have 8 engines total in the power plant. We also use, for peak shaving, and that's what we do at the plant, is peak shave. We have a generator at the wastewater plant and at the water plant that run for peak shaving operations.
Well, we might just say that peak shaving means that we have, help me on this if I get off, we contract to buy a certain amount of power for which we get a good rate from AMP Ohio, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then if we go above that, we would either go online ourselves, we could go online, because it would be cheaper than to pay.
That's right.
Is that, am I roughly right?
Right, that's right. During the times that we are serving, let's say that last 5% of load during a very, very hot summer day, it may be better for us to run our generation instead of buying power on the short-term market. And not only are we doing that for Oberlin, but we generate for 21 other Northern Ohio, or 20 other Northern Ohio communities. all these communities belong to a group called AMP Ohio. And so we peak shave for these 21 members when it's too expensive to go out and buy that last 5% of energy on a peak day.
And that capability, that ability to do that for AMP Ohio means lower rates for us, doesn't
That's
it?
correct. We receive, in lieu of that, we receive capacity payments because we have this generation here that we can turn on at any time. And whether we generate or we don't generate, we receive a payment for the amount of capacity that we have here in Oberlin. Right now we have 13 megawatts of generation that's under contract with AMP Ohio. At the end of May, we will have 18 megawatts that will be under contract as we're installing 2 new generators in the
Tell us
power
about those
plant.
new generators.
Well, we had decided to in 1996, or let's start a little bit before that. In 1994, we decided to start replacing some generation in our power plant. We had some generation that was aging, having a much harder time finding parts for. Also, the visible emissions that you would see when these things were running was quite intense. And even though they fall within the EPA limits, they're still it's quite sightly when you go drive by the power plant.
Leave a little film
Leave a
on
little
things
film,
too,
a
which wasn't
little
pleasing
soot.
to
Right,
people.
exactly, exactly. So in 1996, we replaced one generator that had actually been retired in place for several years, and that was the natural gas engine that we installed. This year, we replaced 2 of the oldest still running engines in the power plant. One was from 1934, when the power plant was built, and the other engine was from 1941. They were both diesel units, and they both comprised about 1,580 kilowatts. We had those removed, and we are installing 2 new dual fuel engines, again meaning they can run on diesel fuel or natural gas, which of course is a much cleaner burning source. And each one of these engines is rated at 3,100 kilowatts. So we're adding a lot more capacity to the power plant, and that's going to give us the ability to contract with AMP Ohio for more capacity.
That's great. When do you hope to have those in?
They are in. They are on their foundations.
They are.
They are all piped up. The electrical work is being done now. During this project, we also decided to add 2 new cooling towers to keep these engines cool. We replaced a cooling tower that was 60 years old. It was a wooden plank tower. And
I remember, yes. That's sitting in the back there.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. We took that down this year and put in new cooling capacity. We were having a much tougher time during the summer to keep some of the engines cool with that old tower, and it had paid itself many times over, just as the engine generators did.
You should have offered it to the Historical Society.
Well, there was a little asbestos in there, so that had to be abated properly and removed. So
I guess not then.
But these engines are opposed piston engines, and they were originally designed for Navy ships. They share the same cylinder, and of course Navy ships, there's very tight quarters, and that's what these engines were developed for, is to be put in an engine or in Navy ships, and they have one cylinder with a piston on top and a piston on the bottom, and that's the same type of engine that we are installing in the power plant.
That's great, because that gives you space considerations there that
Absolutely.
are positive.
That's right.
Doesn't it?
Exactly.
You mentioned AMP Ohio. Tell us about AMP Ohio.
Okay. AMP Ohio and Oberlin are almost synonymous.
Tell us what that AMP Ohio stands for.
Well, AMP Ohio stands for American Municipal Power Ohio, and it is a collection of 80 public power communities across Ohio. And together, we go out and purchase wholesale power supply. There is a staff at AMP Ohio that does this function for us.
In Columbus, is that correct?
In Columbus, that is correct. And that is their main function, is procuring wholesale power for us. At one time, we were beholden to Ohio Edison, or it's the First Energy Company now. We were beholden to them, and we decided that we had enough of paying those types of wholesale power rates, and a group formed together with other public power communities, And so together, that's what we do is buy wholesale power, and it's another reason why our rates are so low.
Does Amp Ohio buy any from First Energy?
They do buy a little bit from First Energy, but they can, because it's in such more greater quantities than what Oberlin can do on their own, they of course get a discount for that energy. But they do buy a small portion from First Energy, and of course First Energy still remains the transmission system. It is the system by which we get electricity here to utilize or
and
use
that's
in
what those
Oberlin.
substations are for, aren't there?
That's right.
That's 3 of them?
We have 4 substations, in Oberlin, and they are used to lower the voltage that comes in from the transmission line, so that the electricity can flow along our distribution lines, or low voltage lines, which is referred to as distribution. And so that's what those substations are for. They're also used for letting us route power where we need to, and if we need to turn off a circuit, we can run through another circuit without keeping the lights on for a long period of time.
Or a lightning strike or something.
Right.
So one of those is on Pile Road, one's out here on
One's on Butternut Ridge.
And then there's one on Oberlin Road, isn't there? And then the 4th is at the station.
The 4th is at the power plant.
That's right. Okay.
Right.
I forgot. So, something else I was going to ask you about Amp Ohio. Well, we'll come back to it.
Well, there are a couple other things that they do for us other than just the wholesale power purchase. There are a couple other arms of Amp Ohio. One is called the OMEA, which is the Ohio Municipal Electric Association, and what they are is our lobbying group, and they keep in touch with the state legislature, and when there are issues that are close to public power or are important to public power or a detriment to public power, they're involved in that and keep us abreast of those issues. So we have a lobbying arm of AMP Ohio, and then we also have an educational arm called the Ohio Public Power Educational Institute, or OPPEI. And that part of AMP Ohio keeps not only us but our customers abreast of certain issues in the electric industry and what's going on with public power. It also is utilized for our electric safety program, and they do that, of course, for all the municipal electric systems that are members.
So they're a great backup organization.
They are a very good resource.
And AMP Ohio does generate some itself, doesn't it?
It owns, well, it doesn't own, its members own generation capacity. They are owners of a coal-fired plant down in Marietta, and that's where Oberlin gets 50% of their electricity. They are also, we are also owners of a distributed generation project where it's natural gas and diesel fueled generation that's strategically located all throughout member communities, AMP Ohio member communities across Ohio, and that's used for peak shaving. We also own a hydro plant, or part owners of a hydro plant down on the Ohio River at the Belleville Locks and Dam. So,
is that coal one having to meet emission standards that are changing?
There are much more stringent standards that it's going to need to meet by 2003. This plant will be paid off in 2008, and but they are AMP Ohio is aggressively working on trying to meet those standards and meeting with several companies that can help us do that.
Yeah, is it correct to say that our electric rates are tied to the cost of both purchasing and generating, and how does that work?
Well,
how do you tell us about the rate structure?
Okay, that's correct in part. In January of 2001, we instituted a new rate structure. The rate structure previous to that had been in place for 25 years, and but because of deregulation and the need for us to be able to separate the distribution side of our business from the generation side and identify what the costs are to the generation side and the cost to the distribution side, we instituted a new rate structure that identifies those costs and then sets a fee for each one of those. So now, for instance, for a residential customer, they have 3 charges that make up their electric rate. The first one is a generation charge. That generation charge is 3.5 cents. and it is purely based on our wholesale power cost, what Oberlin has to pay for electricity, and it's also based on the operations and the maintenance of our power plant. And that's what makes up that fee. We then have a distribution charge that is 2.8 cents per kilowatt hour. I need to say that. And it is purely based on the amount of wires and poles and lines that we have in Oberlin, the staffing that it takes to maintain those wires and lines and poles. It also includes our technical and administrative staff. That's all rolled into that fee. We then have a customer charge, which is a flat cost, and for residential customers it's $2.50. That is for our ancillary services such as meter reading, billing, and collection. So for instance, if someone uses 1,000 kilowatt hours a month, and that would be basically maybe a family of 4 with a 2,000 square foot home, they would take the 3.5 cents times 1,000 kilowatt hours, the 2.8 cents times 1,000 kilowatt hours, and then the $2.50, and comes up to $66.30 for 1,000 kilowatt hours. So our average, a customer's average cost is about 6.6 cents per kilowatt hour, based on that number.
And that's about the lowest in Ohio, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly one of the lowest in this area. I don't think that we're the lowest as far as the public power utilities go. I know there are some that are cheaper, some that I believe are in the 5 cent range, but in comparison to the local investor-owned utility, Ohio Edison, those residential customers pay about 12 cents. So, for instance, if they use 1,000 kilowatt hours, it's $120. If an Oberlin customer uses 1,000 kilowatt hours, it's $66.30.
That's not a bad bargain.
Not a bad deal.
I do think that's a... So let's speak about green power, and then we'll take a break.
Okay.
Tell me about green power.
Well,
does that have some possibilities for Oberlin down the line?
Well, right now we have some green power resources in our portfolio. Again, Oberlin is part owner of a hydro project down on the Ohio River in West Virginia, and I believe we take about 1,200 kilowatts from that project. That is a green power resource for us, and then we also are pretty close to embarking on a landfill gas project. A developer has decided to develop several landfills across Ohio to turn them into generation projects. Instead of having this gas just flared off, put a generator on it and make some energy. And one of the landfills that they are developing is the BFI landfill right out on Route 20. Oberlin's part in this is that we are going to construct a transmission line that will connect to this landfill gas generation site, and we will allow this energy to be wheeled across our system to get onto the First Energy transmission system. And really, Oberlin was the kind of the impetus behind this project getting started. We were very interested in turning that landfill into a gas project, but it was something bigger than what Oberlin could take on. So AMP Ohio decided to or agreed to purchase the output from all the landfill gas generation sites and resell that power back to its members, and that's what they're doing.
So we would get that power not directly but indirectly through the grids.
We have contracted for a portion of that power, but indirectly this landfill gas power is going to be flowing over our system, and in return for that we will get a wheeling fee, which is basically just the depreciation of our system. We didn't want to impede on this project, and that was one reason why this landfill is being developed first, is because the investor-owned utilities have been putting a lot of roadblocks in the way for the developer to develop these projects. And Oberlin certainly has not wanted to do that, and really wants to see this gas not flared off anymore.
Yeah. So, well, let's take a short break here, and we'll be back in just a minute or so.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
The media seems to move faster than ever. No sooner does something happen than the TV cameras are there covering it. There before almost anyone else. Almost. Please support the American Red Cross. The need is real. The time is now. Help can't wait.
Lothrop, and our guest tonight, Steve Dupee, the director of Oberlin's Municipal Light and Power System. And again, we're so delighted that you're here, and we've been having an interesting conversation here about various aspects of Oberlin's power system and electricity production in general. We're going to talk about California, and when I wrote my notes, I put 2 exclamation marks. Could Ohio be hit by the shortage of electric power that the western states are having?
I certainly don't see the same things economically. Of course, Ohio may be impacted because California is quite a large portion of the gross national product. But as far as their electric situation and comparing that to Ohio's situation, I don't think Ohio is in the same boat. There's several reasons for that. California was the first state to deregulate, and I think they're learning now some of the pitfalls of deregulation. One of those pitfalls is that because generation companies were not assured a particular return on their investment, they decided not to build in California. So while this period of becoming deregulated occurred, no plants were being built in California, and so now what they have is a situation where their demand outstrips their supply, and that's why you see the rolling blackouts, and you see prices that are 3 times as much, quadruple as much, and there are many other very, very complex issues that I've read about, but don't thoroughly understand. But there are some real basic or simple things, and one of those again is that their demand is greater than their supply. The other problem is that they are more natural gas dependent, and we know, as you know, the natural gas market has gone out of the roof. Prices have been very volatile, and that has hurt California. The other thing with regards to their deregulation law is that their investor-owned utilities were forced to sell off their generation assets to someone else.
I remember reading that.
They didn't just separate them, they had to actually sell them. And when those investor-owned utilities bought that power back from the companies they sold to, during the summertime when prices got too high, they just couldn't afford it. It just broke them. And that's what you see with PG&E now and what you see with Southern Cal. Ohio, on the other hand, number one, its demand is not higher than supply. We've got plenty of supply. We have several plants that are being built in the Midwest, 11 of those in Ohio that are under construction now. The other thing is Ohio, and this may be not the greatest thing, but Ohio is more coal dependent than natural gas dependent. They actually 90%, I believe, comes from coal. 90% of the electricity comes from coal, and the prices for coal are much more stable. The other thing is that our deregulation legislation did not, or not ours, but Ohio's, did not require investor-owned utilities to sell off their generation assets, just to separate those businesses and operate them separately. So those are the major differences that I see between California and Ohio, and don't believe that I don't see rolling blackouts or that type of pricing in Ohio at all.
Now, that raises a question. We could, am I correct, we could go online and serve Oberlin for ourselves?
We could. Now that we have these new generators, we'll have the capacity, about a 20 megawatt capacity. Our highest peak load occurred in, I believe, July of '99 at 21 megawatts. So we do have the ability to serve our whole load. Of course, we wouldn't do that because we can procure power resources much cheaper than
But I was
our
thinking
generation.
if there was some reason they couldn't service us or a storm cut us off, we could. For the Y2K, which is a long gone issue now, but for Y2K, we
we put together a program for black starting our power plant in case we lost our tie with Ohio Edison.
And we also have generation capability at both the water plant and the sanitary sewer
and the wastewater.
Wastewater,
correct.
yes. Okay. And then the college has FAA hospital also have generating capacity for
Right.
themselves if they needed it, right?
That's right.
So we're in pretty good shape.
That's right.
Yeah. I think something just.
We just
something-
lost a light.
Well, yes. I hope that's nothing. No implication on the Oberlin.
Yeah,
power
I hope
system.
not.
We'll blame it on Ohio.
Okay.
We'll do that. We're sort of operating now partially in the dark. Just bear along with us. We'll see the light. How about that?
It's much cooler now.
It's
anyway,
much cooler.
Dick,
Yes.
right?
Yes. What do you see the greatest challenges for Oberlin in the next 10 years, 20 years, and maybe the industry in general?
Well, the industry in general is that, of course, we rely heavily on fossil fuels. And, I don't know if fossil fuels are, obviously, they're not going to be around forever. And I think some of our greatest challenges will be finding alternative sources of energy, whether that be green power, whether that be customer generation, such as fuel cells, windmills, landfill gas. But I think with the advent of global warming, it's our duty to go out and find better ways of producing the electric commodity.
Now, nuclear seems to be coming
Nuclear
on the scene again.
yes.
Is there any real?
I'm reading a lot about the nuclear resurgence, and there's a couple reasons for that. Of course, what's going on in the West.
Yeah,
the desperation in the West, and also global warming is another issue. And so I see that the Bush administration is going to be pushing heavily in their plan for more construction of nuclear reactors. I still think that, and probably as you well know, Dick, that you still have the problems with radioactive waste, and what do you do with that radioactive waste?
That out.
It appears that they have some new technologies out there with nuclear. There was one that I just read very, very recently about small uranium balls that would be about the size of billiard balls, and that they let helium run over these billiard balls, or these uranium-sized billiard balls, and the helium then is heated, and that spins a turbine, and then when the turbine spins, it dissipates the heat. So it was just something that I read.
That's a new one.
I don't know.
So you think Oberlin is doing pretty well as it faces the next decade?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that it has its own public power utility, they're 99% of the way home.
Yeah. And in your capable hands, we have nothing to worry about. Very good. Okay. Let me ask you this: would you recommend electric power as a vocation for young people?
Absolutely. I started when I was 27, and it's turned out to be a wonderful career for me. I enjoy it very much. Public power, serving the public is a lot of fun. This utility, because it's we don't have the for-profit pressures in place. I mean, we have the pressures in place to serve the people that own this utility, and I like those pressures, because then you can do good things and really find ways to help our customers get the best electric services possible. And that's actually one thing that we've really worked hard on in the past couple of years, is that we know that in a deregulated environment, we have to do more than just providing reliable, low-cost electric service. And so we have began programs like energy audits and blower door test, putting together websites so our customers can get information about this utility. We've never had to talk about ourselves before, and we're doing that more now. On the commercial side, we've put together a key accounts program, and using our own in-house technical services staff and our own equipment, we're helping our customers find ways to lower their demand or lower their consumption, and therefore lower their utility bill. And I think it's incumbent on us to find ways to do that and help them conserve.
Are you going to still do that key account bit, or are you
I'm
going
going to hire somebody to do that eventually. I did that for about a year and a half. And
invaluable background, my word. Yes. Right. I didn't know whether you were going to try to bear that burden still? Or?
I bared that burden for 10 months, and it certainly wore me down.
Yes.
And so I'm ready to move on and find somebody to help us out with that.
Good. Somebody with some training, hopefully, in
Right.
that area. Right,
Exactly.
right. Let me ask this as we wind this down now. Amp Ohio has taken over the natural gas distribution, and it's meant a lot of lower rates for a lot of people. We're
Right.
very grateful about this.
Right.
Tell us about that and where you see it going.
Well, actually, Columbia Gas still distributes.
I'm sorry, they distribute
the natural
yes,
gas.
Yes. We purchase, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Amp Ohio purchases the gas. In 1998, when Columbia Gas decided to start their own customer choice program and allow Columbia Gas customers to shop for the natural gas commodity, Amp Ohio decided to get in the natural gas business and to enable us public power utilities to offer not only electric service but the gas commodity to our customers also. We felt that we could do that cheaper because not only would we be using the gas for this residential program, but us utilities use gas very, very heavily during the summertime for our natural gas generating units. So we thought we would get some load diversity and through that be able to get some really good pricing on gas that we could offer to our customers. And that's what we did. And the first 3 years of this program have been very, very successful. I think the first rate that we had was about 36 cents a 100 cubic feet. And at that time, Columbia Gas was charging somewhere in the 40-cent range for gas, in the high 40-cent range. The gas market started to get volatile, and so our prices rose in the next year to 47 cents for a little while, and then 52 cents after that. And I believe that Columbia Gas at that time was about twice as much, or close to that, about 86 cents. So the program's done very well. We've had 300 customers, Oberlin customers, sign up for the natural gas program, and I think that they like, even though there's not a lot of questions that they probably need to ask me, but they have a live person that they can come down and talk to about their gas service. Now, at this time, Amp Ohio is not taking on any more new customers. The last program they had in place was just a rate that was 10% below what Columbia Gas is charging. But for now, they have discontinued that and are not taking any more new customers. This winter, the prices were so volatile, and the other issue was that Columbia Gas had put in place an operational flow order, which meant that gas marketers like Amp Ohio had to flow a certain amount of gas into the Columbia Gas distribution system, and even more than what our users were using. And so, therefore, they had to go out and procure more supply at very, very high rates. And so, it's actually set the program back a little bit, but I think they'll get it turned around, and I think that we can see some favorable rates for our customers for the next heating
And
season.
they'll be opening up again when?
They will be opening up again probably in September, I believe. This discontinuance does not affect any of our customers that have natural gas service through us now. They are still getting that either 47 cent or 52 cent per 100 cubic feet rate, and will continue to get that throughout whatever their contract period is. Most customers in Oberlin signed up or renewed with our program in September of 2000. So.
Okay. I'm surprised out of, what did you say the residential was? 20, how many residential customers?
We have 2,900.
2,900, only
Yes.
300 signed up.
And only 300.
Surprised.
Well, we got into the program about 4 months after Columbia Gas opened up, and there were several marketers marketing very, very hard and lobbying very, very hard.
And it got confusing, yes.
And well, it got confusing, but probably people probably switched pretty early on, and a lot of people were switched by the time that we got into it and started offering a gas product through Oberlin.
So you want to keep an eye out for the news releases when September comes around.
Right.
If you save some money. It won't be probably as economical as now, but...
Probably not, because the rates remain high. They're probably going to remain high throughout the year. Us utilities might have a little bit, in part, to blame for that, only because we are using a lot. You know, natural gas is a much cleaner burning source. It's very, very popular amongst utilities, and there's a lot of peak shaving generation going in to serve that, serve the last little bit of load. And so the demand for natural gas has certainly risen.
But it still would be lower than Columbia gas would probably.
Yes,
Certainly would be something.
If it wasn't lower, then we would not be in it.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. Well, we've come to the end of this. Do you have any final comments? Here's your chance to address Oberlin in your new capacity.
That's great. That's great. No, I tell you, Dick, I've enjoyed working for Oberlin for the past 10 years, and look forward to serving them as director of Oberlin Light and Power for many years to come. It's a rewarding job for me. I've always had this philosophy: when a place such as Oberlin or any place that I work for does such a good job of taking care of me and taking care of my family, which they do so well, that comes back triple-fold for me, and I'm motivated to do the best job possible for Oberlin. And so I really, really enjoy it.
Can people come and look at the electric plant?
Absolutely, anytime they can come down. We've had lots of school classes come down and see us. Of course, we have Public Power Week the first week of October every year, and we have tours of our power plant then. But in any case, anybody can come down and take a look for themselves, and it's quite an operation.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
It certainly is. Well, Steve, we thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're going to give you a tape of this show for posterity.
I see.
For
Great.
your heirs 30, 40 years, 50 years down the line. And we want to give you a mug, a souvenir mug, which matches this motif, Conversations with Lothrop mug.
All right.
And I thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
being
Dick.
our guest tonight. And we thank all of you out there for having joined us this evening. And in the last Thursday of May, on the last Thursday of May, we will have another fascinating guest to have an interview with, and we hope you will join us at that time. Until then, this is Richard Lothrop saying thanks again for joining us, and good evening.